Our cities are in peril, and our behaviors have surpassed the expectations of the 20th century modernized cities that we designed. We're currently living beyond our planetary boundaries. And in this climate emergency era, our cities need to live, breathe, function, operate, and even behave differently. And the responsibility is on us, each one of us. But the interesting thing is that our cities have always been quite adaptive because they are mainly made up of us. And if you look around, our cities have constantly changed with us. However, sometimes the change has not always been that good. You see, prior to industrialization, our cities were more in sync with nature because societies depended on nature for their well-being. They were mainly agrarian societies. However, industrialization changed something fundamental. We learned to mend nature, or at least we think we learned to mend nature. We moved water, reclaimed land, industrialized food production, and many more such things. And 21st century has seen this exacerbating, especially with the growth of urbanization in Asia. So what do we need to do differently now? Well, to start with, being sustainable is not enough anymore. We've reached a tipping point where being sustainable, or in other words, just sustaining or retaining nature, is not going to help us to keep the Earth temperatures from rising beyond 1.5 degrees Celsius. And we've been told by various global organizations, including the IPCC, the Intergovernmental Panel for Climate Change, that it's a point of no return if we aren't able to control that. We'll probably see more droughts, more flash floods, more storms, and sadly, more lives and livelihoods lost. So we need to go beyond. Some say we need to move towards being restorative. So what does restorative mean? It means whatever resources we use, we give the same back to nature. Sadly, the rate at which we're going, we'll need to do way a lot more. And we need to move quickly towards being regenerative. So what does regenerative mean? It simply means to restore to a better, higher, or a more worthy state. To give new life or energy to be more active and more successful. So as an example, it is not just about making zero carbon cities, but it is in fact about making oxygen positive cities or carbon negative cities. Can we design something where human systems and natural systems can not just cohabit, but co-evolve or flourish together? Because that's what regenerative cities would truly mean. So how do we do this? Well, our actions need to work at both levels, which is top down and bottom up. Let's start with top down. Our cities need to operate differently. And hence there is a huge responsibility on our governments as well as city planners and designers like me. We can no longer design our cities the way we have always been doing, especially since the middle of 20th century, where cities were designed for automobiles. People lived and worked miles apart. There was vast suburbanization, massive use of natural resources such as land, energy, water, etc. Now, within this ecosystem, let's look at two examples. Let's start with streets. We live in those. Our streets also need to feel different. We need to make streets, not roads. The success of this would be when we stop building roads for cars and start designing streets for people. Can our roads change to beautiful, lush green community parks and fields where our food grows for our families? Or where our children can breathe fresh air and play safely in our neighborhoods? Can we live in a city where we can access most of our basic needs within 10 minutes of walking? And whilst we can keep talking about our streets, our buildings need to look, operate, and feel different too. No more can we design tall glass towers just because we can. Our buildings are responsible for more than 40% of our global carbon emissions. Wouldn't it be great if our buildings could act like trees and absorb CO2 and emit oxygen? It's called biophilic design. How different would our cities look if every building was also a farmhouse producing food for us and electricity that would power our computers and mobile phones that you're using right now to watch this? And you know what? All of this is possible, since there are very smart people already testing these ideas to come to fruition. Now let's talk about us, the society, the bottom up. It's very easy to put the onus on our governments, but we need to change as a society as well. And this is where the bottom up comes in. Collectivism is more important than ever. Societies need to act as a collective and go beyond the individual desires. Look at the cities that responded well to the COVID-19 pandemic and analyze the collective behaviors. In most cases, you'll realize that the success was when the society came together and trusted the systems in place. We need to develop a common understanding of the issues at stake. Our responses may be different, but the comprehension of the threat needs to be the same. This power of collectivism can help change societal behaviors. We need to question all our actions that we always thought were normal. How are my clothes made? How is my community doing? What food am I eating? What's happening to the trash that I'm generating every single day? Where do my avocados come from? All of these are right questions. Questions with probably very different answers, and in some cases, no answers. But if we do not ask these questions, there'll never be an answer. And we'll carry on doing exactly what we've been doing this past century. So let's get together and ask the most important question in this climate emergency era. What do I need to do now to go beyond being sustainable? Thank you.